Hi everyone, Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle.
Hello.
And this is week 2 for July's book of the month, The Midsummer Bride by Kati Wilde. We're reading chapter 6 through 10. And we left off with her kind of spilling all her secrets to him because she thinks he can't understand her. And of course, he could understand her. So you know that ouchie is incoming.
Yeah, he is. However, he is like, I've got a reason.
It's a good
I,
one.
I
It's a
would
good
tell
one.
her. I gotta wait just a little bit.
Just a little bit longer. Yeah. So in the morning, Warrick gives her the tonic again, but it's not poison this time, thankfully. He has managed to figure out the problem. A jar of bloodbane was disguised as foxweed or doxweed, but he can tell the difference because of his magical proclivities from his people. And he is going to figure out who switched them. But in a few days, she's going to start getting very sick because basically, while this thing was killing her, it's also made her body like addicted to it basically, and she's pretty much going to have to go through withdrawal.
Yeah. So his mother was like an herbalist
Hmm.
slash like medicine person, and
Hmm.
so he recognizes that like this is not dog's and like
Yeah.
he is able to tell what's going on. He has questions.
Yeah.
He doesn't
You can.
fully have answers, but he's kind of like the amount of like protectiveness that
Nanny
his
Shar.
nanny has towards this, like her medicine, like her tools, and like how she didn't really want to like give
Teach
up
him.
that job.
Yeah.
All of that makes him. He's like, she seems like she's competent around herbs, so like, why would she? Like, if I can tell,
Right.
why does she not know, or
And
does
if
she?
she doesn't, that's wild. Number one. Number two, she like hoards that kit like a miser. Like nobody else is allowed to touch it. So like how would anybody else have even gotten it in there? So like he obviously strongly suspects her, but he's not sure yet.
And he does, even in this very beginning of this chapter, like he just keeps thinking um about last night's confessions, and she had said in the middle of that, like, I think one more betrayal might kill me,
Yeah.
and he's just like,
And he
oh
knows this
no,
will be a bad one because she trusts this nurse who's been her nurse since she was a baby, literally.
baby, yeah. So it's one of like the people that she one of what like there's only a few people that Elena fully trusts, even though she,
Not even
kind of
fully.
enters the
Yeah.
world looking at like things in the most positive light possible.
Yeah.
She doesn't fully trust very many people, but this nanny is
Is one. Yeah.
one of those people.
So on their travels, they get to this place that he would call a haunt, which is it's like dark and
Place where
dank and
there's
there's ghosts.
ghosts there.
And his chest rune starts glowing, and that just means a ghost is near, basically. And if Alina touches him, then she can see whatever he's seeing too. And it's a woman on a bridge. She tells Warrick that a man threw her off the bridge, and she gives his name. And he says that he will right the wrong so that she can move on, which he does. Uh, and that's so it's almost like little side quests he has to do, like his whole life. Like anywhere he travels, if he sees a ghost and he can fix
Fix.
what's wrong, then he does.
I
Um,
think it's really cute that like Alina had been watching him from like he's the most interesting part apparently of this
yeah,
journey. So she's been watching him, and she is like, "Oh, you are glowing," and she's the one who like knows the moment that it happened and how long
yeah,
he's been
right. Because she's
glowing.
just been staring at him. Yeah. So of course that night back at camp, everybody has questions about his gift. And Alina jokes that she's going to haunt him when she dies, so he'll just be lit up like a lantern all the time. And of course, he
It's
doesn't think that's
also
funny, and he doesn't like talking about that or thinking about that.
no, and she still like thinks that she's cursed, and so she
Right,
really feels like she is going to die.
right.
So just
Yeah, I feel
whenever
like
that
she's made
happens,
peace with that a long time ago. She was just hoping that there were things she could get done before it happened, which is what this whole thing has been about, basically.
yeah. But
Um,
interestingly, the way that she's got that like gallows humor, and he's
yeah,
just
for
like,
sure. He doesn't like it. So he
yeah,
like hauls her into the tent. And he makes a vow to her, though she can't understand him because he's still speaking in his like dialect. But I wrote down the quote because it's fucking great. He says something like, I vow to always love you. My heart is yours. My axe is yours. My last breath is yours. And she says something like, I don't know what you just said to me, but like, I really liked it, basically. And like she can
It
tell that
sounds
it's
real good.
fervent and like, emotional, which is like all she wants from him, basically. So it's very sweet. So he wakes up in the middle of the night and something's wrong. He sees the shadow of someone creeping with a knife. He throws his axe and kills them. And then he just goes back to
And rolls over. I'm just like, okay.
And so Elina sort of barely wakes up during this and he just like rolls over with her and they go back to sleep. And so in the
Yeah.
morning, she is astonished at this dead body.
Yeah, they're like in a
Out of
pool
her
of
tent.
blood under on the carpet, and she's just like, okay,
And
this
she's like,
happened in the
what
night.
the hell? And so they're starting to put together. They think that whenever she wears the queen's face, the gold paint and everything, that she's like easier to spot because that seems to be when they try to get to her. Like after somebody reports seeing her in the queen's face.
Yeah, and but the thing that's interesting here too is that like her guard is kind of like, oh, we shouldn't have like left an opening for you to come in because that must have been, and
Right.
it's almost like they're trying to blame Warwick, and Warwick is like, I have a maybe better question. How
Mm-hmm.
did they know exactly where she was in the camp?
Right. Not just we're
And
here, but where she was exactly her tent. Yeah.
because it's like they went straight to her.
Yeah.
They didn't disrupt anybody else.
No.
Um, so then yeah, that's a
So
question.
yeah, that's another whole can of worms. Yeah. So she's starting to teach him some words over the next few days. And then it comes to Midsummer's Eve, which is the night before they're going to get married. They arrive in this town where they're going to marry. And in the morning, they set off for the temple, and the priestess starts to handfast them, but then she spies the rings. And she says that Elina shouldn't wear them when she's speaking her vows because their magic is really strong and you don't know what kind of effect that could have on your vows, especially later if you choose to unmarry. Because in their culture, basically, they use a red ribbon to tie the hands together and you stay that way until morning. And all you have to do if you want to unmarry is like cut the ribbon or like untie the ribbon and you're like unmarried. And so, and she's like, I don't know what could happen. Like this magic could make something weird. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Elena in this is the kind of like, I mean, I'm not gonna want to unmarry you, and
Yeah.
magic means that you're not gonna want to unmarry me,
Yeah.
and work is like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Also, you're not taking those rings off because someone
It's
just tried to
not
kill
safe.
you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. He's
uh,
like, it's not safe. So no. And second of all, like, it doesn't matter because that's not going to happen. So no. So the marriage proceeds and they must keep their hands bound by the ribbon till dawn, like I said. Then she should the lady's like, you should take care of the ribbon after that. Like some people just like meh, it's like doesn't matter, but she's like, because of the magic, like you should make sure like you know where it is and like that it's okay. And so they have a little celebration with her people, and then he carries her to the tent. And so they like mess around, but not much more than that before, not much more than they had done already before. And so she's like a little bit disappointed and she makes a joke um that he laughs at. And then she realizes that he can understand her, and she is horrified. She tries to get away from him, but of course he won't let her. He begs her to listen to him, and he explains why he kept up the charade, which is to protect her because um because somebody's been trying to kill her. And so once
and
he tells her
she,
everything, yeah,
yeah, the thing is that she feels like extremely betrayed, and she
yes,
immediately is like, oh no, you let me think, and why would you
yeah,
not let me know that you understood what was going on? And so
yeah.
he does explain, and he has good reasons. So,
Yes. And so
but
yeah, once he tells
still,
her everything, she realizes he didn't really have much of a choice, but now she still hesitates to fully trust him, and she hates that and he does too.
yeah.
And of course he also tells her that he suspects Nanny Shar of being the one who's poisoning her. And she, of course, hates that idea even
But
more.
she immediately knows, like when he says there's a poison and you've been getting it in small doses because it's this particular, he's like, I tasted when I blew breath back into you,
Right.
I tasted a bitterness. And then I wanted to know if it was something that was like new or that had
Right.
been happening, which is
Yep.
why I went down on you. I mean,
Not the
what
only
interesting
reason, but
reasons. Like, I just need to make sure that that like slight bitterness was there.
yeah,
But anyway, he's like, "Yep, you're all the way through. You got
fully
poison
poisoned.
everywhere."
Yeah.
And so he is kind of like, and it's something that's been happening over a long period of time. And she
Yeah.
immediately is like, "Oh, is it that tonic?" And he's just like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So
And on top of that, she also learns about the sergeant lying about their route and how he's been trying to keep her from returning home because of this vow that he made to her mother. And then Warrick tells her about the jewels, the stars of Unhera, and she is horrified at the idea that these things have been keeping her alive, and meanwhile, his people are suffering.
well,
Um,
and it's like for 10 years, which she's like, I haven't had them for that long.
yeah,
But for 10 years, these people have been like turning to stone, and like all
yeah,
these people are mourning their family. And
mhm,
she's just like, oh no, we need to take this back right now. And
yeah.
he has to be like, no, no, let's, yes, but
Let's figure it out.
also,
Yeah. Well, he basically vows to her that the two of them are going to leave together and go to Galoth and fix all this, but they have to get her well first, basically. And
the
so
thing that's interesting too is that he tells her like this is gonna suck. Like you're gonna be
it's
so
terrible.
sick, it's gonna be worse than how you
Anything so
feel
far.
when you thought
Yeah.
you were dying. But she's like, she's game.
Yeah.
She's kind of like, all right, let's
It's like,
do this.
okay,
We
that's
gotta
what we have
fix
to
this
do.
stuff.
Yeah. So they decide they're going to tell Dara everything. She's the maid and she's the only one. And because she asks him, okay, so you've been listening. So who can I trust? And he's like, Dara. And she's like, okay. So they're going to use her as like their messenger. But she wants to mess around some more first because she's about to be sick for at least 2 weeks and she doesn't want to wait. And so um later on in the night he goes to wake up Dara and he tells her to bring Shar and her apothecary chest to Elena's tent right away.
Yeah.
And
I
so
have to tell you that I would have died dead, like stone cold dead, if I woke up in the night with some man holding his hand over my mouth and nose and like I
yeah,
I don't
I
know how that
know,
woman survived.
totally. Oh my
But
gosh, for
anyway,
sure.
strong Dara, good job.
Yes, she's great. So Elena confronts Shar about why she's been poisoning her. And the uncle apparently commanded her cooperation and threatened her family. And Alina's like, I could have helped get them out. And Shar is like, and do what? Like, be what? Like, we've been servants to the royal family for generations. Like, and we're just going to be like nobody? Like,
Nobody, yeah,
no,
like it's their claim to fame. Like clearly
it's
there
so
is some
gross.
sort of like pride associated with the station that they have, and
Yes.
she would not be willing to leave that, but she would be willing. And this is what Elina points out too. She's like, so your loyal service is important to you, and yet you're poisoning the
The person
queen
you're
that you're
supposed to be
supposed
loyal
to
to.
be.
It's
It's
horrible.
terrible.
So they
And
tie
she
her
would
up.
rather die because
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, you're too weak because you're too nice." And she's like, "First of all, kindness is not weakness.
Yeah.
Secondly, my punishment to you is that everyone's gonna know what you did." And
Mhm.
she's like, "Well, you might as well
Might
kill
as well.
me." And she's like,
Mhm.
"I'm not gonna
She's like, I'm
because
not gonna.
I'm so
You still think
kind."
I'm nice? Yeah. So they tie her up and gag her, and they tell Dara to wait a full day and then tell everybody about what happened, and to tell them to head back home to Aileron, and that they're going to meet them there. So Alina is already starting to not feel good, and they have a long journey ahead of them. So on the barge, 3 to 4 weeks later, Alina is just starting to get some strength back, like from the purge that she's been through, but like
Yeah,
everything
she
is in
was like
trouble.
skinny from being poisoned, but also like the being sick made her
Yeah.
even more frail and thin. And
Right.
poor Warrick, as he's been with her through it.
Yeah. And so they'll be on the barge for about 10 more days and then a 2 weeks ride into Galeth. And she wants to ride on her own horse before she goes home to Aileron. And so she's been practicing riding every day on the ship, but it exhausts her. Um, and so they've been kissing all the time, like so much that she's like practically chapped lipped, but like she can't handle anything more yet. Like she's just still too, her body is too sick and too exhausted. And so he tells her to practice lifting up his axe every day because she wants to be the one to at least attempt to actually kill her uncle herself with this axe. And so he tells her, he's like, just practice lifting it up every day, and
You'll get
eventually
stronger.
it'll
Yeah.
be, yeah. And then once you can lift it up properly, then you can practice throwing it. Like it's a process, you know. Um, and so and in this moment, she is like overcome by him, and like he doesn't question whether she's strong enough to hold the axe or throw the axe or kill her uncle. He just tells her how to go about doing it, and she like loves him so much in this moment that she just like has to go down on him.
The truth is that she has been like surrounded by people who didn't believe in her, or who thought
Yes.
that she was like not like too soft or not
Yes.
strong enough or
Too
whatever.
weak. Mm-hmm.
And so for it to be like, for him to not even for a second say like, are you sure you can, or do you want to, he's just like, oh, that's what you want to do, here are the steps
Here's how
to
you do
get us
it.
there.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
it
super hot.
deserves
It's
it
super
deserves
hot
it
and
deserves
super
a
emotional.
prize, right?
Super hot and super emotional, and it's very sweet. And so then she tells him she loves him, and he is so happy. And so now she is finally ready, a few days later for them to consummate, which they do, and it's amazing. It's sweet, it's sexy, it's funny, like it's
Yeah,
their
it's great.
and their whole relationship has basically been all those things, and it's wonderful. And so in the morning she doesn't want to get up, so so they have sex again. And so and this is like even hotter now because they're like, but it's still super emotional for both of them. Everything between them is perfect. What could ever go wrong? Oh no. So they ride
This is
into
where you
Gala.
start looking at how much further you have in the book, and you're like, wait a
Yeah.
minute.
So they land from the barge and they ride into Galeth. And
Oh, he
days
also,
later.
there's like a troll that's like,
Yeah.
that's stone, and Warwick tells Elina about how in this place that he's called like the Troll Slayer
Hmm.
because of a mishap that he had with the trolls.
Yes.
And it's really cute, but also it's an excellent like entry into, because
Yeah.
when we get there, people do know he is.
Right.
They are calling him the Troll Slayer, and then his friend Barrack.
Bannon.
I'm sorry,
It's
my
okay.
brain. But Bannon shows up and is like as jolly as ever,
Yeah.
maybe more so because he sees
Yeah.
that
Well,
they
and it's interesting
actually
because
are back.
they're passing into the town and people start noticing the jewels. So everybody knows that like something is afoot. And then when they get close to the city gates is when Bannon comes to meet them. And Warwick's like, this is my wife. She's here to return the jewels, and I'll explain more later. And Bannon's like, okay, sure.
And they all come, but like people start, as the news starts spreading, people
Yeah,
start joining. So it's
following.
almost like a procession
Yeah.
of them walking towards this temple
Yep.
where
So
she's
they
gonna
all go
return.
up to this temple and they climb all the way to the top and they hand the rings over to this priestess who sprouts wings and puts them on the goddess statue.
Yeah,
And then
Elena wanted to climb by herself. This is still like her trying to do her own things.
right.
But two things, she's still kind of weak.
Yep.
And even the strongest people are like huffing and puffing going up this thing.
Right.
And he's afraid, or Warwick is afraid that she might get like trampled. So he picks
Well,
her
yeah,
up.
also there's like so many people now. It's like a crush and he's like, "No, we're just gonna like
But he picks
help
her
you
up
out."
and he's like, don't worry, you're not going to look weak, which is so sweet because I don't know that she has told him her reasons, but he makes sure that she's taken care of, which, I feel like all of this adds up into
Yeah.
what you were saying about how perfect they are together.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, as soon as the rings are back on the statue on top of the temple, everyone who had been stone suddenly returns to flesh. It's super emotional and overwhelming for her. Bannon says that he would like to hear the story tonight at the tavern of what all has transpired since he saw him last, and Warrick agrees.
Everybody though is like thanking Elina in a way that is making her uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because she is like, I did not do anything except what needed to be done to righting a wrong. Like basically something bad happened and I had it like I could
I
fix
could fix it.
that, but also like I had these rings for 3 years and I could have, if I had known, we could have
Right.
fixed this sooner. Like she's just, they're so grateful and she's overwhelmed,
Yep.
not because she's like, oh, you're welcome. It's because
Right.
she is
She
so
feels unworthy of
upset
it. Yeah.
that how she's so upset at like how much grief these people had to live through. It's
Yeah.
so she's such a good person.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, and he's thinking about telling the story that night, and he's thinking about all the things that Elina still doesn't know. And he wants to talk to her at the inn, but she is just crying, like because she's so like emotionally overwrought about all the stuff you just talked about.
And
And
we
so
do know
he
that
just holds
Bannon,
her.
like when they first met, like he and Bannon had a joking conversation, but also he was under like his impression of Alina was completely different than it is now. And so he knows that like the story that's gonna come out
Not
is
good.
not
Yeah.
good, but
No.
also he doesn't have a chance to tell her,
Yeah.
prepare her for
Yeah.
it.
So she's just crying, and he holds her, and she falls asleep, and then they have sex in a bed for the first time. And by
Yay.
then, the party is already, like, in full swing. So they go down to it, and, they call a toast to Warwick and call him the curse breaker now instead of the troll slayer. And then Bannon proceeds to climb up on a table and tells the story of Warwick's original plan when he met her. And Warwick realizes that her hearing this drunken in this drunken public way is a disaster. Like, this is
Yeah.
very bad. Um, Bannon wants Warwick to get up and tell more of the story, but Elina is like stiff and won't look at him. And he's like, oh shit. And he is like heartbroken that he has hurt her so badly because he can tell that she is hurt
Yeah.
again. And so she's like, you should tell your story. I'm going back to the inn alone. And at first he's like, I'll go with you. And she was like, no, I would not have you with me right now, basically. And that just breaks his heart.
Yeah. It
And
is interesting too though, because it's like he knows that like, oh, this is bad, but he thinks like, well, maybe she needs some
needs a
space.
minute.
Like I can't be like pushing myself on her when she's this upset.
Right.
But
And then
he's
oh,
definitely
sorry.
wants to.
Yeah, he does want to. He doesn't want to let her like be alone. So Bannon comes over and Warwick is angry, but it's his own fault, which he knows. And then his chest starts glowing all of a sudden. And that means a fresh ghost because he wasn't glowing before and now he is. So he's like, oh no, somebody's gotten to her. And so he's terrified and he goes back to the inn and he's like searching all around. He can't find her. And as he's about to leave the room, he sees their crimson marriage ribbon on the bed and he picks it up and
And
she's cut it.
she had been wearing it
Right, like a bracelet.
like a bracelet, and so he's just like, oh no. And he looks because he's like, maybe it was an accident, but he sees that it's like a clean
Sheared
cut.
off.
He knows.
Elina has unmarried him and left with his axe. Um, and so he finds her at the stables, but she ignores him. And then she literally walks
Walks
right
right through
through him.
This is the moment where I am panicking because I was like, wait a minute. She doesn't act like anything's happened to her. She is not trying to like talk to Warwick and ask, like say that a wrong has happened or
Yeah.
anything like
And
that.
for
But
his first thought is, oh my God, she's dead. Like, oh fuck, what have I
that's
done?
what I thought. But then I was like, maybe he's dead. Anyway,
And
very
he is
much upset.
devastated. But it turns out that cutting the ribbon literally made him dead to her. She cannot see him, she cannot hear him, and he can't retie the ribbon. He's literally sitting there trying to retie it. It comes undone. She is the only one that can fix it.
Could put it back.
But he
The
can't
thing
see her
that's
to tell her that.
interesting there too is because his like gift or power or whatever to see the dead is probably the only reason why he can see her.
Yeah.
And
Like I
she
think it's supposed to
ends
be
up,
like dead to each other. Like that was the original like thing, but because like you said,
yes,
because he can see
because
ghosts, he can still see her.
but she in the past like had seen a ghost if she was touching him.
Yeah.
But he's dead to her, so she does not see him. She does not like she can't hear him.
Yeah.
Other people can.
Yeah.
But
He's still there. He's not actually dead. He's only dead to her. And so and he knows that she's the only one that can fix this by retying it, and he can't let her be alone. So he refuses to let her go and deal with her uncle alone. He knows that's what she's going to do. And
so we
even if she
noticed
never knows
too,
he's there.
we noticed too, like by this time on their way to this town, they had gotten her a horse. So her horse, it like she brings that.
Yep.
His horse, she's like, huh, funny, he's not there. The horse named Troll.
Yep.
And and so we start to realize that like, okay, she can't see him or anything that belongs to him. That axe, he vowed that it belonged to her.
Yep.
So it is
It's now
technically
hers.
the only part of his
Yep.
belongings that she can see.
Yep. And so he decides to follow her, obviously, because he's not going to let her be alone.
But she thinks she's alone. So she's off like trying to remember the lessons that he taught her about how to start fires and how to
Well,
hunt.
we
She's
haven't
so sad.
gotten there yet.
But I mean, like she's
Like that's the end of chapter 10. She's leaving and he follows her. And that is the end. And it is fucking
it is so sad.
heartbreaking. Oh my God, it's horrible.
Okay.
Whew. Horrible. So next week, obviously, the conclusion of this story. We will be here to give it to you. And if you have not read this book yet, you need to do it.
Also come back because obviously I need to tell you the rest of this.
Yes, very much. We will see you next week.
See you.